still to this day, up until just very recently, implement my own boundaries and hold them up. And I would allow this person to come and say hello to me because we were in a social setting and I didn't want to cause a rift and I didn't want to make any drama. And, you know, his wife doesn't know what he did. He's moved on in his life. He's got children. And one day it really irked me because I realized that he would just come over and say hi to me and he'd carried on with his life. And the impact of what he had done to me had really been so deep within my own life. It caused distress in my relationships with my parents to start with, because I went through that phase of going through the process after the abuse had happened, after the incident happened, of going through the depression, the fear, the anxiety, and sort of trying to articulate that to my parents without telling them, because it was someone that they knew, knowing that it would cause a lot of trouble to bring this to light. And ultimately with them not wanting to bring it to light once I finally did explain it to them. And it had caused a rift for me as a child with my parents, feeling like I couldn't trust them because I didn't feel like they helped me enforce my boundaries, which for me reinforced that my boundaries were not important. And as I went on, I realized that you know, this gentleman would come up to me at events, and I was just getting angrier and angrier each time I saw him, because he had just moved on with his life. And I stopped him one day. I asked to meet him out in a parking lot and explained to him that, you know, what you've done, you've kind of gone on with your life and moved on. And I've kept this secret all these years. And I had to face it through my parents. I had to face it with the relationships that I was in terms of my marriages, because having gone through sexual abuse, it can cause issues for you, as it did for me, with trust, with intimacy, and even relating to your partner in a sexual way. So I had to bear and share those gruesome events for me that happened with me to my partners and with my husbands, so that I could have that closeness to them and explain why some of the behaviors and the reactions I may have, where that came from. Whereas I know this fellow, he didn't have to explain any of that. And I also had to pay attention to the fears that surrounded me when my children were born, and having the same thing repeat with them. And I know that he probably didn't have to go through that with his children. And so I mentioned this to him, and I said, you know, I've kept your secret for so long to protect you, and you continue to come around me and say hello. And I just wanted to let you know, you really impacted my life in a very negative way, and I've spent my adulthood healing. And I think it's one of the reasons I am a coach, and one of the reasons I do try my very best to help people wherever I can, because I know what it's like to go through incidences where you feel alone, where you feel like no one understands, where you feel like nobody gets you. And it was really important for me to share my experiences and to share the journey that I experienced myself from a healing perspective, to be able to help others, so that maybe in some small way I could ease their pain and ease the difficulties that they were facing. And so he said he didn't know what to say, and basically there was nothing that really came from him. And I knew that the conversation was more for me anyways, because it was me sort of saying, you know what, I'm standing up for myself today, and I'm not your victim anymore. I'm a survivor, and I'm just a woman that you did something to, but I won't let you take that away from me anymore. And oddly enough, I saw him at a wedding recently, and it was just after that event. And I thought that he got it, because it was a 2-day event, and the first day he kind of just walked past me. We were around other people, and he didn't speak to me. But the next day, as law of attraction would have it, I was seated at his table for the reception. He was sitting 2 chairs away from me, and I just froze initially. And he sort of sat there and recognized that other people were going to notice that we weren't conversing. And so he came over to me and he said, hello, how are you? And I didn't answer. And he repeated it again. And I just looked straight ahead and I said, I'm well, thank you. And he was in shock, I could tell. And I felt as though I had broken that cycle. I felt as though I had finally gotten the strength to be who I always was, to be who I might have been prior to that happening and throughout those years. But in that moment, that was good enough for me, and it began a different chapter, and it has been the beginning to another chapter of my life, and inspires me, as most of my life events do, to share with you, and as many as I can, my experiences, with the hopes that I can help you through your own journey in some way or the other. So I share with you again that if you do feel that you are being abused in some way, if you're unsure, I would really invite you and encourage you to reach out to someone and just find out. At the very best, and if it would be my personal wish for you, is that maybe no, you're not. But in the event that you are, I really encourage you to reach out so that you are not alone, and that you can be supported, and that you can be guided, and that you can receive help in order to have the abuse stop. We are all valuable human beings, every one of us on this planet. We deserve to be loved and treated with respect. So I encourage you, again, if that's something that's going on for you, please do reach out to myself or anybody else that you feel comfortable speaking with that can help you along the way. And with abuse, it's important to know that it's not because of something you've done. I used to think when I started learning the law of attraction, which is one of the things that guided me to understand it better, was how did I attract this? Why on earth would I attract being victimized in such a way? Generally speaking, though, someone who is abusive will energetically, through your vibration, through your energy, they will feel your lack of confidence, maybe it's low self-esteem, and they'll be drawn to you. Some people will scope you out, but a lot of times it's as simple as they feel the energy, they feel the lack of confidence within you, that maybe you are one of those pleasers. I believe for me it was because I probably wasn't the one that was going to speak up out of other girls in the circle that probably would have. And so they sense that and they know that about you. And so it's really important for you to be able to know this and to know that you can change that energy. It's not something that you're stuck with if it's happened to you. I had a client on the phone the other day, and she was pretty much determined and had decided that this was the way life was going to be for her. If she was going to be in a relationship, that's what it entailed. It entailed her being victimized. It entailed her being abused, both physically and sexually. And I was so happy to be able to tell her that no, that is not the life that is destined for you. There is something better out there, and there are ways to help you change your energy, change your subconscious messaging, change those things within you that may attract someone that might want to do something like that. I hope that this has been of service to someone, just one person out there. That makes it all worthwhile to me. And I look forward to sharing other experiences with you. I know I can promise you that they will be a little bit more upbeat, some of the more experiences that I will share with you coming forward, but I did want to give this time to this subject as it has been coming across my desk and into my office on a higher frequency lately, and really wanted to speak to it. And also just to share from my own perspective, this is a healing journey for me, and I hope that in some way it will be healing for you. Once again, I always remind you to stop waiting and start living 365.